All right, you should be looking at your guided notes you got today about intro to exponential functions. All right, so we've got y equals a times b to the x, like you saw in the video with the weird guy who said want. All right, so a is our growth. Sorry, a is our y-intercept. It's also our starting point. Sorry, I'm drawing on the fly picture full of teacher jokes. All right, and b is our growth factor, or how much we're changing by, or how much we're going up by. So doubling, tripling, halving, all those things, okay? That will be our b. It's what's raised to the x value, okay? All right. So that's y-intercept for a and growth factor for b. When b is bigger than 0 but less than 1, the graph is decaying. And when b is greater than 1, the graph is growing. These were the exponential growth and decay functions that you saw in the video. Right there on your page, right? So this guy on the left here, that is exponential growth. The guy on the right, exponential decay. We want our money to do this, not this, right? We want the population of bugs living in our house to do this, not this. All right, so we got some examples here. All right, so this first one is y equals 2vx. And so I'm going to pick a few x values. 0 is always a great place, right? And I'm just picking points, no big deal. 1, 2, 3. All right, and then I'm going to do -1, -2, but I won't save those till the end. So I'll put them on the bottom. I know we usually go in numerical order when we're doing T-charts, but it's okay. No big deal. All right, so I have 2 to the 0 power, and like you saw in the video, anything to the 0 is, oh, wait for it, 1, right? And then x to the first power is going to give me 2 to the first power, which is 2. All right. All right, if 2 is raised to the second power, I've got 2 squared. That's going to be 4. Got 2 to the third, that's 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. All right. Like we saw in the video, when you have a negative exponent, that doesn't mean I get negative numbers all of a sudden. That is 2 to the -1 power, right? And that is the reciprocal. So when I have a reciprocal, that means I flip it. So it's 1 over 2 to the first, and 2 to the first is 1. So 2 to the -1 power is 1/2. All right, and then why did it delete my 2? It's being ridiculous. Now that didn't even look like a 2. Sorry. All right, and then I have 2 to the -2 power. And like we talked about, negative is reciprocal, so it's 1 over 2 squared. And 2 squared is 4, so it's 1 over 4, or 1/4. On these, you're going to use your calculator, right? And you're going to type those functions in. So you're going to type 2, and you're going to use the rooftop looking guy, and you're going to type 0, and you're going to hit the equal sign or the enter button, and it's going to give you 1. Okay? So no stress about 2 to the -2, right? 2, rooftop, negative key, 2, right? And that's going to give you 1/4 on the yellow calculator. On the little blue ones, it'll probably give you 0.25, but you know how to convert fractions to decimals and decimals to fractions on the blue calculator. All right, so now we need to graph this function. So I've got 0 on my x value, y is 1, so I'll put a point there. I've got 1 on my x and 2 on the y values, so I'll put a point there. I've got 2 to the, my input is 2, my output is 4. My input is 3, my output is 8, which is off my graph up here, right? It's okay, I can guesstimate. If I go -1, I'm at 1/2, right? 1/2. I'm at -2, I'm at 1/4, which is like a quarter of the way up, right? So I'm getting this curve looking guy. It's going like that. We're going to try that again because that is a horrible curve. Boop, boop. That's my exponential graph, right? All right, so over here I've got y equals 1/2 to the x. We're going to use the same points. 0, 1, 2, 3, -1, -2, okay? All right, so if I plug in 0, anything to the 0 is, you got it, 1. 1/2 to the first power, it's going to be 1/2, right? Use that in the calculator. I'm going to use my rooftop key. The first power is 1/2. 1/2 squared is 1/4. Because 1/2 times 1/2. 1 times 1 is 1, and 2 times 2 is 4. Then 1/2 to the third is 1/8. That's a 4, even though it really doesn't look like it. So frustrating. Anyway. All right, then I have this -1 down here. So that means I have reciprocal again. So the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2 to the first, and 2 to the first is, 2. Same thing with 1/2 to the -2 power. That's the same thing as 2 squared because it's reciprocal, so I flip this guy. And that gives me 4. But remember, we're using our calculator. No panicking on me over here. -2, 4. -1, 2. 0 is still at 1. 1 is at 1/2, 1/4, and 1/8, right? It's getting closer and closer to 0. But it's never going to cross it because that is the asymptote. That's the asymptote. There's my 2 examples. Growth, decay. Growth, decay. All right, so for example 3, we got some convoluted stuff. That's why we have a calculator, right? So let's start. -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So for this first one, I've got -2, open parentheses, 1.5 to the -2 power plus 3. Okay. Remember that negative fraction gives us the reciprocal. All right, so I type -2 times 1.5 to the -2 power plus 3 in my calculator. I get 19/9, which is barely going to fit in that little box. Right? 19, even if it was writing correctly, 19/9, which is 2.11 repeating, right? It's about 2.1. That's 19/9. You can write 2.1, right? But you're using your calculator, so you're getting your own numbers. So then I go to the next one. And all I'm going to do is swap that -2 for a -1. Right? Swap that -2 for a -1. So then I have 5/3, right? And 5/3, excuse me, is 1.6 repeating. Okay. Then I'm going to insert that 0. So instead of -1, it becomes 0, which is just 1, humorously. So use my calculator, swap out my guy, make him a 1. That's going to give me 0. Make it a 2. It's going to be a negative 3 halves, right? Or negative 1.5. Swap again. I'm going to take that 2 and make it a 3. And all I'm doing on the calculator is just deleting that exponent, and I'm not retyping it every time. Negative 15 fourths. Negative 15 fourths. All right, so let's go graph this. I got negative 2 and about 2.11. Right in there. Sorry, my pen's not very calibrated. Negative 1, 1.6, right in there. 1, 0, bam. Sorry, 0, 1. Now 1, 0 right there. And then 2 is at negative 1.5 right in here. And then 3 is at negative 15 fourths, which is negative 3.75. 3.75. Alright, so my graph's getting closer and closer to 3 right there. And then it's going to like take off to Never Never Land. Okay, my asymptote this time is at positive 3, right? This value out here is my asymptote. And this is a decreasing function, which is not a growth function or a decay function. It's just decreasing, okay? And it's because that negative out front flipped it. This negative out front flipped it. All right, guys, so you've got several practice problems. There's some vocabulary for you, just to remind you, and then a bunch of practice problems. Ms. Lundy and I will be wandering around the room to help you. Raise your hand if you got questions.